The courtroom was packed, the air heavy with tension as people whispered about the trial. At the center of it all sat Daniel, a thin 12-year-old boy with wide, frightened eyes. His feet dangled above the floor as he gripped the wooden sides of the witness stand, trying to steady his trembling hands. Everyone expected him to cry, to stumble, maybe even refuse to speak. Instead, his small voice broke the silence like a lightning strike. "The cops beat me." The words echoed, bouncing off the walls until the entire room froze. Gasps swept through the audience. The officers shifted uneasily, their faces pale. His mother buried her face in her hands, unable to hold back her sobs. Even the stern-faced judge leaned forward, shaken. In that moment, it was no longer about procedures or arguments, it was about a child's truth, raw and undeniable, cutting through the silence. The judge asked Daniel to explain, her voice softer now, almost maternal. The boy swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I wasn't doing anything wrong," he whispered. "I was just coming back from the store. I bought candy for my little sister." His words painted a picture so ordinary, yet so heartbreaking. He described how flashing lights suddenly surrounded him, how strong hands shoved him against a wall. "I told them my name. I told them I was only 12, but they didn't listen." His voice shook as he touched the side of his face where bruises once were. The courtroom listened in silence, seeing not a criminal, but a child whose world was shattered in a single night. Daniel wasn't angry, he was hurt, confused, and still searching for the safety that should have been his birthright. Each word pulled the room deeper into his pain. The room waited for Daniel to break down, but instead, he lifted his head and looked straight at the officers seated across from him. His eyes, wet with tears, carried no hatred, only a fragile honesty. "I don't hate you," he said softly. "I just want to feel safe again." The word struck harder than any accusation. A murmur spread through the courtroom, but quickly faded into silence. Lawyers who had spent years fighting battles lowered their eyes. The strict judge, known for her sharp tongue, quietly removed her glasses, pressing them against her lips to hide the trembling. Even the officers, who moments earlier stood stiff and guarded, shifted uneasily in their seats. Daniel's innocence, his refusal to meet pain with bitterness, disarmed them all. In that moment, the courtroom was no longer about winning or losing. It became a place where humanity demanded to be seen. When the judge called for a recess, everyone expected tension to rise. But something entirely different unfolded. One of the very officers Daniel had accused slowly rose from his seat. His boots echoed against the wooden floor as he walked toward the boy. The courtroom held its breath, bracing for conflict. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the officer knelt down in front of Daniel. His eyes shimmered with tears as his voice cracked, "I'm sorry. I should have protected you." Gasps rippled across the room. Daniel blinked, stunned, as the officer gently placed a hand over his own heart. Moments later, another officer lowered his head, shame flooding his face. One by one, others followed, their stiff postures giving way to remorse. The wall between authority and a child crumbled in front of everyone's eyes. What began as accusation had turned into a plea for healing, and an answer no one expected. The judge, her voice unsteady, delivered a ruling that went beyond punishment. She ordered accountability, yes, but also change, new training, community outreach, and a vow that no child should ever feel Daniel's fear again. The gavel struck, but the sound carried more hope than finality. As Daniel stepped down from the stand, his mother wrapped him in trembling arms. Reporters crowded the hallway, cameras flashing, yet the boy's focus was simple. He looked up at her and whispered, "Maybe now, kids like me won't be afraid anymore." His words weren't loud, but they carried further than any headline. The courtroom emptied, but the silence that lingered wasn't heavy anymore. It was the quiet after a storm, filled with possibility. Daniel had walked in as a victim, but left as a symbol of courage and forgiveness. One small voice had reminded the world that change begins with truth.